I feel bad for anyone who isn't watching To the Abandoned Sacred Beast because every single episode has been getting more interesting, more intriguing, and just overall more gripping to follow week by week. This week we get the Gargoyle of the Crew, and I have to say I adored this episode, not only just for the scenery, I love the industrial overall atmosphere to the show, and just the whole idea that you do have a abandoned church, you have a gargoyle at night coming down to kind of give justice to the world, but you actually had a lot of human interactions between Nancy and just this kid in this episode who basically lost his mother because of the gargoyle. And something I always appreciate is when an author, an anime studio, whoever it may be, takes a very human approach to killing. Hank is a soldier. He has been trained to turn off his switch and say, it's okay to take a life when X situation occurs. However, it's been proven that a majority of people, if they had a gun in their hands and they were told to shoot someone because they did a bad thing, most people have a switch, have a filter to say, you shouldn't take another human's life. It's something that's been naturally ingrained into society over generations upon generations upon generations. Nancy hesitates to pull the trigger against Topher, this gargoyle, and that's something that's incredibly human, but I'm sure many people will write it off as being, oh, she wasn't a soldier in the moment, or she didn't have the balls to do it. You see that a lot with the anime community, hell, you see that a lot with pretty much any community, where someone isn't just a killer when she was just a normal civilian a few nights prior. This is something that should naturally take time for her to be able to pull the trigger. The first time she did, it was because of revenge and anger fueling her, and that's why she could shoot Hank. However, most of these people, they aren't Hank to her. They're just normal people, even though she knows that they can lose control and lose their souls. So I really appreciate that detail and how you have a kid who was able to pull the trigger because that was his form of revenge, but he wouldn't be able to do that against a normal person, someone who didn't wrong him. And I love details like that because it really gives you a human moment and something that feels like this isn't just monsters that we're seeing, this is actually something that's driven by humans. And I love how Nancy does look at the incarnates and say, you know, they're not monsters, they're not demons. It feels like at the end of the day, they are human, and it's just really unfortunate what has to happen to them. I think the idea of just, you know, Kane kind of being Hank's reason to come to this town, really hoping that he could find him and get his revenge to what happened to his love, and then just the shattering realization that the claw marks that he's seeing on just a lot of brutally killed people, almost in a religious way, being hung up and strung up in just a very gruesome way. I was actually surprised by how gruesome they made the human deaths from the gargoyle in this episode. But to just see that once again he has to take out another one of his soldiers, but this time it's a soldier who had a very strong sense of justice, just maybe got a little too caught up in the war at the time. And I think that's really interesting because this is someone who, as we see in this episode, during the war, he was someone who gave kind of courage to the soldiers, almost like an unofficial captain in a way you could say. He's the big reason why a lot of people were able to get through that war, especially as seen by some of the soldiers we've already taken out throughout this run. And I like how, for him, this is his sense of justice. He started off as seeing, oh, there's a kid running away, he obviously stole something, and he says, let me guide you down the correct path. But anyone who looks at a gargoyle who has a little bit of a human face poking out is going to freak out, and ultimately, he killed the kid, and that became his new sense of justice. It's really interesting how they are still human at the end of the day. Their drive and morals and just overall what they were taught in the war still rings true. It's just if they pretty much get fed into the monstrous ways one time, it feels like it's kind of like an animal getting a taste of blood. Once they have a taste of blood, it's just going to keep spiraling out of control, as seen by the Justice Gargoyle and just what he ultimately went for. It was quite fun just seeing this. It felt almost like a Victorian setting in a way. You know, you're trying to find the gargoyle at night, he's hiding away in the church, and where could that go? And I thought it was very nice just seeing how human a lot of these interactions were throughout this episode, especially between Hank as well as Nancy. This is a relationship that could have been dragged out as, oh my god, is she ever going to pull the trigger when he's sleeping? But she quickly, but at a realistic pace, has come to accept what Hank is doing and recognizes that every time he pulls that trigger, it's not him doing it because he's a murderer. This is what has to happen. The original deal was supposed to be they all ended up dead by the hands of the ones who created them, but unfortunately, Kane set them upon the world, and now he has to clean up the mess before an even worse scenario breaks out and something more dangerous than any war is pretty much on the horizon. And I love that because it really shows you that Nancy isn't some clueless girl tagging along for no reason. She's quickly but at a realistic pace recognizing what's happening, but still has the openness to say, maybe there will come a point where one of these soldiers won't have to be killed, and I can help Hank see that because currently Hank doesn't need to be killed, even though he's saying everyone at some point will. And that's the beauty of the writing to the show. Even though it's so monstrous on a visual level, you see gargoyles, dragons, a giant arachnid waifu. Like, there's so many things going on here, and you could say this is just anime, right? We know what to expect, but if you really break down and strip down the characters, both the kind of one-and-done characters like we see with the kid in this episode, or the reoccurring characters, you really see there's a lot more to the writing than just a gargoyle or something to that nature. There's actually a lot of meat on the bone that is this anime. And even though I love the action in this show, and pretty much the action kind of functions the same way for the most part with each fight up till now, the thing that really hooks me for 90% of this episode is honestly the character dialogue and just the complexity to this overall story and where it obviously wants to go, because this is a pretty big world. Kane's up to no good. Kane invited our main character after kidnapping his companion, saying, hey, I'll give her back, but you have to come to my dinner party. That's not going to be good for him. And can Hank keep his cool? Because this is a man who he wants blood for. And obviously where that can go, I have no idea. I heard that it might be a little more anime original next week, which I'm pretty excited for because Mappa is excellent with that type of content. But nonetheless, I'm incredibly excited for this. I thought the overall battle, though, was pretty fun because it was pretty much one-sided for the most part. Usually when Hank's fighting people, you kind of believe Hank's gonna win at the end of the day. Even if he struggles a little bit, he's gonna get out alive. He eventually got shot with a god-killer bullet and started to lose control. That was probably the most tense situation because, okay, not only is Nancy there, not only is the kid there, you have pretty much two people who probably can't take out this soldier, and Hank is pretty much down, can he get back up? And to see him literally rip the bullet out to then just the stab through the heart, that has to be the most metal and badass thing I think I've seen Hank do in this run so far. That was just so powerful. I love that. Even though it was them just kind of like throwing each other around a church, it was pretty much similar to a lot of the combat we've seen up to this point, especially with the whole Colosseum and what was going on there. With the whole like Minotaur kind of like trapping himself away, it was kind of just tossing around through rubble and things like that. But I love how when it came to the end stages of the passing, this wasn't like anything we've seen up to this point, where usually it's them kind of accepting and feeling like, oh, this is the way it has to be. This is a man saying, I'm justice, you are doing the wrong thing, and Hank just allows him to believe that, being like, you're right, you are justice, and then he pulls the trigger. Hank knows what he has to do, but at the same time, he deeply respected someone like this who got them through the war, and once again, it pains him that he has to kill another one of his comrades as he's basically gushing out blood from having yet again another bullet go through him that could have easily ruined his chance of salvaging everything that did happen there. That was such a powerful moment, and just having Kane pop up and kind of capturing his companion is just rubbing salt on the God-Killer bullet wound, and I really adored that. This series is just so fun because even though it has been Monster of the Week every single episode, it feels like it's such an interesting world that clearly Kane is up to no good. He has something bigger planned. Obviously, he's trying to manipulate the soldiers into doing whatever it is he wants to do. Clearly wants to kill Hank first and foremost, but then again, he easily could have killed Hank in this situation, so maybe he wants to torture him a bit more. But there's something bigger going on than just him having to kill the soldiers. There's something more sinister going on. I'll be interested to see what we'll touch upon within this season, if Mappa will go completely anime original and just have him take out all the soldiers and wrap it up in one season, or if maybe they hope they can do another season down the line. Obviously only time will tell, but this was an excellent episode. I think the setting played a big part of this because I just love seeing all the industrial just aspects to the environment, and having the battle take place in a church with a gargoyle. There is not a better match made in heaven than that. But I honestly just love seeing the bonding between Hank and Nancy. It really feels like we're getting a steady and just gradual pace of them building up, Hank seeing just Nancy as Elaine. It kind of feels like home. It's something that just makes him feel happy that something that Elaine used to do for him, Nancy's currently doing, and it kind of gives him peace of mind when he's trying to be so tough and brutal, but at the end of the day, I think he just wants a shoulder to cry on, but obviously after the mission is completed because he can't show weakness as of yet. There's a lot of great character moments, there's a lot of great emotional voice acting across the board, especially when Hank was in pain after that bullet. I just love this episode overall. It just continues to get better, and the worst thing that I can even say about this show across the board is that it's not the most polished Mappa series visually that I've seen, but it really feels almost fitting in a way that sometimes you get this grittiness that just kind of adds onto the monstrous forms that we're looking at. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and hell, it got a chuckle out of me when you had that kid just pull down Liza's top because he's just so pissed off, and then you have this big-breasted woman trying to be like, oh, come with me and I'll basically help you, and then he just pulls it down being like, screw you, and runs off. that is such a little boy reaction right there to what just happened, though I still do question why she wears such kind of revealing tops when she is a soldier and would have to be running around. You'd think it would be popping out a lot more than just a kid having to pull it down, but I guess that's anime for you. What did everyone think, though, of episode 5 of To the Abandoned Sacred Beast? Favorite moment? Do you love it, hate? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, though, be sure to drop a like, and also hit that subscribe button if you have any news. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.